watching EDFL Web TV, brought to you by the Sporting Globe, 690 Mount Alexander Road in Moonee Ponds. Adam, it's time for the wash-up. You'll see on your screen through this segment the scores and ladders as we go through each of the divisions, and we start with Strathmore Community Bank Premier Division. Your winners at the weekend: Greenvale, Aberfeldy, Avondale Heights, Airport West and Strathmore. Adam, where would you like to start?
How about Lebanon Reserve, Teo? Because the Northern Saints, they put on yet another great display. Unfortunately, though, it didn't get the 4 points. A really good game against Strathmore, but it was a home team, the Moors, who have been quite good this year, and they're well on track for a big September if they can get there and cause some damage. But they were very good against the Northern Saints, and they managed to win the shootout. Just 1 point in it at three-quarter time. The Northern Saints didn't lead at any of the breaks, but they were certainly more than competitive. It was a really good game of football. Like I said, just 1 point at three-quarter time, but they managed to stretch that final margin out to 15 points and break away in the final term. Northern Saints, obviously, they're locked into that relegation battle at the moment, but they were quite good. They put up another very good showing ahead of that massive game against Essendon due to Stars.
Now, my understanding was Strathmore, they really celebrated at the final siren. There was a lot of relief. It wasn't a workmanlike 4 points where you just shake hands and get off the ground and move to the next week. Beating the Northern Saints all of a sudden has gone from being a minimum expectation to quite a big deal, even for a top club. So it's a real sign of how far the Stars have come. You mentioned the relegation battle, Adam. Essendon due to Stars losing by under a goal for the third time this year, and that is now 4 games decided by 6 points or less. The Stars are still winless, so obviously they've lost all 4 of them, and no need to keep anyone in suspense. Round 9 will be heading to Mutton Reserve for the Northern Saints against the Essendon Doodah Stars for the Match of the Day broadcast in Premier Division. The question is, Adam, Essendon Doodah Stars, they seem like a much better team than a winless one, but they have got now to win when it matters.
They certainly do, Teo. It's a massive game at the Northern Saints, especially considering their next 2 fixtures after that. They go to Lebanon Reserve the week after, and then they host Aberfeldy. So no underestimating just how crucial that clash against the Northern Saints is, but you got to feel for them, Teo. You're right, they've lost so many close games, including against some of the better teams in the competition, Avondale Heights, and they pushed Greenvale as well. So extremely unlucky Essendon Doodah Stars at the moment. We saw them live at Maribyrnong Park, and Marby gave them a bit of a touch-up that day. They've been travelling okay since. I know that there might have been a bit of a chat in the middle of the grounds after the game, some soul-searching down at Essendon Doodah Stars, but you've got to say, without getting the 4 points, they have, in a way, come good. So hopefully they can get it right, and we're really looking forward to that clash at Mutton Reserve.
Let's move on to Aberfeldy, who had quite a comfortable win against Maribyrnong Park. The bad news for Marby is that Brodie Holland is suspected to be out for the season. He injured himself the week before against Keilor, and I believe the word coming through on the grapevine was some sort of bone foot fracture. So that's terrible news for Maribyrnong Park and for Brodie Holland. Of course, he can coach from the sidelines, but he has been one of the top players yet again in the EDFL on the park this year, so Marby really lose a gun there. Let's move on and talk about Avondale Heights, because the unbeaten leader of the ladder had a reasonably comfortable win against Pascoe Vale. The thing that I was interested to see, I mean, the Rose and Galea show rolls on. Yet again, they combined for more than 10 goals, but Nathan Byrne had to do a lot of the rucking. Nick DiMartino suffering a bit of an injury. Could that be a potential weakness for Avondale Heights, especially if they don't have the 1-2 punch? It seems as though Byrne is carrying a lot of responsibility around the ground as the ruckman for that Avondale Heights team.
I think there's still enough quality in that lineup for them to be able to handle it. Obviously, Avondale Heights, losing a ruckman's never great, but I still think, particularly in that midfield, they can still get enough numbers through the middle in terms of possession and be feeding it into the Galea and Rose forward line there that they've got running down there, which, by the way, Teo, they've combined for over 70 goals now this year. Unbelievable performance only halfway through it.
All right, we move on to Essendon Ford Division 1. Winners at the weekend were Hadfield, Oak Park, West Coburg and Tullamarine. And Adam, I'm going to cut right to the chase. Have we overstated the competitiveness of Division 1? Because it is starting to look like the 2 front-runners are breaking away. This is Alberto Contador and Lance Armstrong riding off into the distance, perhaps, and the rest of the pack is fighting it out amongst each other behind. By the way, nothing implied of any wrongdoing. I'm just using a cycling analogy, nothing to do with any of the dodgy stuff. It just seems as though, Adam, after we've been talking it up so much, that now we have two teams that are clearly better than the rest of the league, and maybe it's not as close as we first thought.
Oh, maybe not in terms of the premiership race, but that in itself is quite an interesting battle at the moment. It was only 1 point between them when they played at Leo Dunedin Reserve a couple of weeks back, Teo, in our broadcast game. West Coburg only beat Tulla by a point that particular day. But there's still a lot of interest in this league at the moment. Obviously, West Meadows are still a 4-4. They're still inside the 4, but they've got Glenroy and perhaps even Hillside that could still come good later in the year.
We move on to Division 2. Don't forget, EDFL.tv is where you can see the full game of East Sunbury versus Burnside Heights, and our analysis is coming up next on EDFL Web TV, where we go over all the highlights and talking points out of the game. Other winners in addition to East Sunbury at the weekend were Roxburgh Park, East Keilor and Coburg Districts. Adam, Roxburgh Park struggled to shake off Keilor Park. They ended up kicking away to a 28-point win. Maybe a little bit deceptive though. It seems as though Keilor Park, with their season on the line, perhaps sensing a bit of vulnerability for Moonee Valley, really wanted to be the first team to knock off Roxburgh Park, and perhaps it is just a suggestion that the winning streak may not last as long as we think.
Yeah, you're right, Tay. Obviously, Roxy had a big win the week before against East Keilor as well. Was there a bit of a letdown? Well, I suppose time will tell. It's getting really desperate now for Keilor Park, although they're equal pegging with Moonee Valley in the win-loss ratio 3 and 5 at the moment. So really big opportunity for Keilor Park. Obviously, there is an 18% percentage gap between Keilor Park and Moonee Valley. So if Keilor Park do want to make finals, Taylor, they want to start beating some of these teams around them, and obviously pushing the top sides in East Keilor and Roxburgh Park to the limit. So okay for Keilor Park, but they need to start getting some W's.
Coburg Districts are coming good. They've dished out some hidings against the bottom teams. They've actually been responsible for a couple of teams' biggest loss of the season. Could it mean that they are finally starting to click into gear? We have a big separation in the league between the top three, and then fourth down is a bit more of a dogfight. But Coburg Districts, are they now starting to bridge the gap to that top two? They were a very popular pre-season pick for the premiership, so are they now back up in the category of East Keilor and Roxburgh Park, or do they actually have to beat one of those two head-to-head before we give them equal billing with the top pair?
They're a contender right now, Coburg Districts. They perhaps deserve a little bit more credit than they've been getting in EDFL circles. 6-2, Taylor, that is a record certainly to be proud of, and only 2 games away from top spot, 1 game away from second spot, currently occupied by East Keilor. Obviously, there's going to be some big games against Roxy and East Keilor later in the year. They might want to snare 1 or 2 wins from that, but they have to be there to win at Tail, and come September, they might be a really, really good showing. They're going to play finals this year. As I said, they are 6-2, so they're tracking along really nicely at the moment, Coburg Districts.
You're watching EDFL Web TV. That's it for the wash-up. We are going to go now into match breakdown. If you want to see the full game, though, go to edfl.tv. All the highlights and best bits of East Sunbury versus Burnside Heights is coming up next.